So, as you were saying just a second ago, hostages? What?
Well, and I'm reading the story. One of the low key parts of the story that's really most important, but it's like buried in it, is that they used a fucking piloted drone to confront the suspect. And I'm like, dude, the Bloomington military, I mean, police department is so bloated. They got fucking drones that they're sending in.
Whoa, there was a welfare check and it turned into a CRT response? That's like the equivalent of Bloomington SWAT team is the CERT team, the critical incident response team. Wow, sounds
Well,
really.
apparently they have drones.
Oh yeah, no, they've got drones. They've got the city has a bearcat for some fucked up reason.
Hmm.
Like that's one of those things. I get it. I get it. They have all this stuff. The world is dangerous. Like they're not going to be sending in the Bearcat to deal with a out of control, riot at the villas.
Right. I mean,
They're not,
they
they're,
might at some point though, you know?
I mean,
That's the issue is if the demographic is sufficiently not white enough, they might just send the Bearcat. And if it's a bunch of kids and then they're like,
I'm saying it's going to pop up on the hill long before it ever shows up at the villas. Like there's
right.
like
Oh yeah,
like
definitely it's
Dunhill,
definitely gonna be at the hill first for
that
sure.
whole strip of college development, the college ghettos, I guess. On the
Hmm.
north end, like Dunhill, that place underwent an extreme change. It's no longer a shit brown stack of wood, but it's like like I think it's like 4 or 5 floors of
Hmm.
of modern looking college student housing. And
You can put lipstick on a pig though, bro.
I
That's
know
what
that's what I'm.
that's what Bloomington's doing.
That's the thing.
Cause
It's still the student ghetto, the North Side student
do you
ghetto.
do you remember Smallwood apartments
Oh yeah,
when they first built those things?
yeah.
Those things were like top tier fucking rich people. Like they were only
It was almost all populated by kids from Jersey.
right. I mean, and it was to the point that only rich kids from Jersey or from overseas
There
were
was also
able to afford it
there was also
in
the
the
Lewis
first place.
building, and that was like the Chicago Heights, basically. And then there was that other one off of 12th Street that's like 4 buildings, and that's the international wealthy kids complex.
But those rich kids, the first thing they do is destroy that shit. So
Yeah,
it's like whether it's the rich kids or the poor kids, American kids don't know how to keep shit and not destroy it. And so
dude.
it's
Oh my
like these
god.
facades, you can all these facades, they look awesome from the outside, but all you know, the inside is not up to code, and then it's got some kids that are treating it like shit.
Man,
And it's
whenever there's a serious snow in Bloomington, I like to go cruise those areas because there's always some dude whose parents were foolish enough to buy him like a Lamborghini, and they're driving that shit in the snow because that's their car. or if it's not a Lamborghini, it's a Maserati, or it's an Aston Martin, or it's some other car that shouldn't exist in like the middle of Indiana, of all places. Like to see some like S600, like a really fancy Mercedes just cruising around, that just doesn't make sense. Although last night I was out and I saw like a kind of a alarming number of, I want to say, reasonably fancy, if but all modern cars. Like within the last 5 years, that all had pediddles, and it made me kind of wonder. It's like, what's going on? Is it they can't tell because the one headlight is so bright, or is it that like they're just not doing anything about it because you have to change an entire bank of LEDs, or it costs like thousands of dollars for an assembly? Like, what's the deal? What's going on? And like none of they were all like the modern cars with like the crazy LED systems that like they almost look like they're moving. They almost look like they're like tuning themselves in real time. Like one of them was a Lexus, and I thought, well, that doesn't seem right. That's like that car's way too new. But I guess you're right. People just don't know how to take care of their shit. doesn't matter if it's a Lexus or a Mercedes or a brand new Toyota pickup truck. When the lights go out, if somebody doesn't know what they're doing, then they don't do anything.
Well, and then you see on some of these supercars, a light will be like $10,000.
One headlamp assembly for a modern,
Yep.
like a 2-year-old Kia K5 is almost $2,000. Like, what the fuck? Just one of them. Not even
Wow.
the pair.
Yeah, and that's where,
That,
seeing people who buy supercars on YouTube and then eventually try to offload them to varying degrees of success, it's like I don't know if it's ever worth it for anyone who's not on a racing team.
it can't be.
It just can't be.
It can't be. It can't possibly be worth it. Like,
I don't know any midlife crisis enough to be worth what those things cost to maintain. Obviously, the entry price is high, but the maintenance price, good lord.
I'm
Oh
I'm
my god.
I I think, okay, so maybe about 10 years ago, 10, maybe less or so, I just kind of lost interest in cars, and it wasn't like an accessibility thing. Because the way that I see it, the most available parts exist in the realm of like the Miata or the Ford Mustang, normal cars, accessible vehicles. And those are both vehicles that are capable of delivering like untold amounts of fun on the right road. And by right road, I mean a track, like a purpose built place to go drive hard. And those vehicles, you can go out and spend less than $5,000 and buy a Miata that'll go and be competitive at like SCCA racing, or if those are even still the thing. And you can, for about $8,000, you can get yourself into like a Mustang and then give it a better cam profile or give it a chip and just drive the hell out of it and have a ton of fun. And that's kind of where my mind goes with all that stuff. But then I just stopped really being interested in that, because the things that I was interested in were like, it didn't involve getting somewhere quickly. It involved getting somewhere and just being cool and having a good time, and also getting away from like civilization. And so you end up having to bring like stuff to make food, or things, to sit down if you want to sit down, or if you're going to stay out there, you got to bring camping equipment. And so on some level, I stopped losing interest in vehicles that couldn't even get me to those places. But then I found this. So there's a national park called Voyagers. It's in the Wisconsin. Or wait a minute, maybe it's Minnesota. I think it's in Minnesota actually. Yeah, it's in Minnesota. Uh, but it's a boat access only national park, because it's all islands, and you reserve an island if you want to camp on it. You don't even have to pay anything. You just reserve the island because you got to get there first. And it's on the boundary waters, so you're right next to Canada. You can like stand on the shore of a private island and yell at Canada if you wanted to. And obviously, I don't know what I would yell at Canada, but I'm sure I could come up with something if given the opportunity. And so I find myself in this place where, like, okay, so now to get to this place, I've got to find, or I got to secure some kind of aquatic transportation, and I got to be able to get there. And unfortunately, like, there's no Mustang that's gonna do that kind of stuff. Not a modern Mustang. I might be able to find like an old Fox body that somebody put a, like, like the Vanilla Ice, yeah, the Vanilla Ice Mustang. I think somebody put like a trailer hitch on it and might be able to pull something with that. But that's just ridiculous and not safe. And so here we are now, and like well into the era of the hypercar, where these things can do stuff that's like borderline speed racer stuff. And I guess it was really impressive watching like the Toyota GT car from like the 90s just taking the banks at Le Mans faster than anything else on Earth because it had like the most sophisticated aerodynamic system that had ever existed, or watching like old footage of a 787Bs just going just hard and kicking so much ass that Le Mans banned them, and then or like watching old footage of a GT40 just showing up and kicking ass, or like the Audi Quattro when they brought that to rally, and no when they brought that into GT racing, and it was just indomitable. Nothing could do what it could do. Like, so watching those things, like the firsts, is better like through the lens of historical analysis. But I couldn't find the time to watch. There are so many races nowadays. You can watch like every country has their own Grand Touring or Grand Nationals program, and every country has its own like superstar racers, and some of them make it into like the big leagues and are find an international uh, racing, and that stuff's really exciting. But like that's a whole level of hobby that I don't even have time for anymore. I don't think I ever actually had time for it. I feel like I was always playing catch up to it.
A lot to keep up with.
Yeah, and like the stuff that I enjoy the most, it's like Goodwood when they bring out those classic race cars, and the person who spent the last 20 years like perfecting the techniques of operating it has their go at Goodwood to put their name on or get their name in the pantheon. That stuff's cool because those are old cars that survived and they were all champions. But like when I look at F1 now, there's so many restrictions that like those cars aren't even different from each other. They just have different names on the manufacturing. Like,
Oh no, there's no that could not be farther from the truth.
I know that they're actually very different. They all
No,
use very
no,
different
no.
technology,
Okay,
very different suspension and braking technology. But like their capabilities are all on parity with each other. And so,
I mean not even. And this is also where I think there's been a ton of F1 slander, and then I think in the context of it, it's been kind of misrepresenting like how insane the engineering actually is. Because then you think about like these are V6 hybrids going like 215 miles an hour, bro.
yeah,
You know what I'm saying? And then it's like Ford just came in, and Honda is like, they're in it, and then Audi's new, they're in it now, and Cadillac is now in it. So you have like different car manufacturing companies coming in and taking different like powertrains. And so like the Honda one, for example, apparently it vibrates so bad that it's like giving the drivers nerve damage. Like they just finished a race finally on the third um Grand Prix. Like they couldn't even finish the race because the the steering wheel vibrates so bad that both drivers could potentially get nerve damage if they finish a whole race. So like
that doesn't
that's the
speak well.
worst.
That doesn't bode well for Honda.
No, no,
That
no, no,
that
no,
actually
no,
that
not at
actually
all.
that
It's
actually
a Honda curse
man
now.
Honda. I'm gonna pick on Honda because Honda's transmissions have always been this like thing where like their manual transmissions, they always felt real weird to me, and their clutches always felt real weird to me, no matter what version of like a Civic or Civic Motor or Prelude or even Accords. They always had this like this clutch behavior that I couldn't get around, and their automatic transmissions always felt like the, they felt like the thing that I read about, like the slush box. It never felt to me like there was always something wrong with them. And it's weird because, of course, like the only transmissions that I've ever had any experience with failure were like a Ford automatic that ate itself, and what was it? I had a Mitsubishi, but its problem wasn't actually the transmission. It was that I had a bad fuel injector, and so that the engine just ran rough, and the transmission was always trying to like manage this like modulating power output. But the thing that always got me about the Hondas, and when I was looking for a car, I ended up with a Mazda. But when I was looking for cars, I kept running into like this issue where the available like Accords that I was looking at, they were either from a generation that ate themselves, that just transmissions ate themselves, and like the problem was persistent in the Odysseys even. So it was like a transmission designed for like even for a bigger vehicle that couldn't even handle a smaller vehicle, and that just made me really just hesitant about it. Just reading, like an entire generation of transmissions that had problems, and they've always had problems. Like every time I read about like their recalls, it's always with their like bigger vehicles. Like they couldn't figure it out, and it was just always this thing. Like they make fantastic engines, probably some of the best engines on earth. Like I mean, across this entire spectrum, from like small engines all the way up to like power plant type stuff that we don't even use that kind of stuff. We don't we're consumers, but like they do everything, and for whatever reason, there it's like I read one explanation that kind of made sense, and it's that they got their start in motorcycles, and so like manual transmissions made sense to them because it was sequential and they were working with gears, but the automatic transmission didn't come naturally to them because it wasn't part of their like the whole ethos of like racing, and I'm not sure how that even like translates down anymore because there was that big period of time where like the race cars had like dual stage gearboxes and that stuff was feeding down into the consumer, but it turns out that those things eat themselves, and like that whole generation of cars from like 2008 to 2015, they don't exist on the used market, and it's not that they just like vanished, it's that they literally ate themselves and there were no parts to repair them, like all those Ford Fusions, and I think we're running into the tail end of like the remaining Malibus. But I think in like maybe 4 to 5 years, we're going to see like half as many cars, and they're all going to be now everything's going to be CUVs or trucks. And I think we're actually going to start seeing fewer and fewer trucks because of the glut of luxury vehicles that kind of happened as a result of COVID.
Well, it's hard to tell what's going to happen because people, I think, are finding out that like Chinese cars are way cheaper and like are no less reliable than American cars, in that American cars, when they used to be made out of all metal and like were built on factory lines where humans were paid well and had pride in their jobs, those cars were like different than the ones that are made by people whose jobs are under fire, mostly automated, and then all of the models are effectively watered down to the same like six variations.
Yeah.
So it's like you don't get any variety. The variety's all in like the size of the screen or the color of the leather, instead of actually getting different body types. And so
Well, everything is designed in a wind tunnel now, and engine bays are reorganized for efficiency by machines that by sorry engineers that don't work on the vehicles they design. I think there's
yep.
another issue is that there's so many like safety regulations that require vehicles have all sorts of crazy shit like lidar or radar systems to do assisted braking or blind spot monitoring or all of the safety features, and I think that stuff's great when people are actually driving like the speed limit and those safety countermeasures are able to actually do what they do. But I think what ends up happening when everyone's driving what amounts to a race car is they drive like getting crazy, and then who cares if you have airbags when you're driving 80 miles an hour and you meet a giant cement pillar or a big limestone building? Like physics will always defeat airbag.
Right. Yep.
And like when I when I drive my 31-year-old truck, which has one airbag in it, which would probably hurt me just as much as the windshield. Like I drive slow because I want to reduce that speed differential between me and the unmoving object. Like I'm less worried about traveling 10 miles an hour slower than the person who's driving, 75 when I'm only, 65 miles an hour faster than the immovable object and I have to come to a complete stop instantaneously. That 10-mile-an-hour differential is like not that big of a deal. What's even worse though is when you're going like 30, 35 miles an hour and out of nowhere there's some vehicle that's like clearly going like 50 miles an hour on a not even a real back road, just like a road through the county. And it's like, man, where are you gonna go? This thing bends. There's probably a deer on the other side of that hill. Like, I don't know. I
Well,
think
and
that
that's where speed differential is the big danger. It's
yeah,
like the differential is the issue. Because that's what's happening with F1. That's the real danger
yeah.
with the cars right now is like one car might be on a part of a track where it's drained its battery and then it starts losing speed and somebody else is gaining speed. And that's like the crash that happened in the most recent race was because of speed differential, but it's like that that's always the big issue with crashes in that um the more obviously the higher the difference in speed, the more force is transferred, but this is where crumple zones have sort of changed the equation dramatically for the better.
I think we need to go back to a version of cars that don't have airbags or padding or crumple zones and let people just, Darwin Award themselves. Like if people knew that, like, oh yeah, a little fender bender might get you like a broken arm. I think people might be a little bit more disinclined to drive like lunatics.
I mean, I think in that context, it's like no, the restrictions should be higher as far as like the metrics to
I'm all okay about location based speed control. Like
no, not even like the metrics to get a license should be on par with what a fucking F1 driver has to do anyway. And so you have all these people who get licenses at 16 years old because effectively they just have to memorize a bunch of answers, but they still don't actually understand physics. And so when you have like 16-year-olds that have to master 2-ton, 3-ton vehicles, they need to understand physics, period. And you shouldn't be able to get on the road unless you understand physics. Is like if you can't vote unless you can read, you shouldn't be able to like operate a fucking 2-ton potentially deathmobile unless you fucking understand physics and how like the way that they teach stopping and distance, it doesn't translate, it doesn't get someone to understand what that means. And so especially in the age of like simulated driving, like my insurance has gone down the more I sim drive. So it's like that's there's a clear correlation there, and I would argue a causation, but it's also one of those things like the more someone understands how a car behaves, the less likely they are to make it do something that is going to put it in a position under which they don't have control. And so this is where that I just always think of that dude who fucking came out of the tunnel in the Ferrari, way too fast, fucking crashes into a boulder, kills him and his friend. And it's like, that dude never should have been in that vehicle just because he had the money to buy it, just because you can afford it. Like that,
Well, with one less driver like that, the roads are safer,
but his friend's dead because
and that's really unfortunate.
which again, it's like people shouldn't be dying just because they happen to like
Have a
get in the
horrible
car.
friend.
Right. Where, they get in the car with the person where you don't think that like, oh, this person's gonna take this we're going to get a fucking meal at McDonald's and this person's gonna put our lives at risk for no reason. Like getting in the car is already putting your life at risk. But then to actually
There are other people on the road.
take it to the extreme, absolutely. So that's where I'm saying like these people, a lot of Americans are in this mindset where they don't value life, they don't understand physics, and then they're able to just get a car because they like turn 16. No, that bar is way too low. That the value of life here is non-existent. And I don't think like it was already like that before, and it didn't make people value life at all. If anything, it was like people are gonna drink and drive and not use seatbelts, and like they don't value their own life or the people around them because they don't think about that. And so being the only way that they would do that is being threatened with the like a fine if you're visibly not thinking about your threat to other people's lives, then you get it. That's where we're at now. That's the like follow up to that approach, because that other approach is how we like got way too many drunk drivers not wearing seatbelts and not and people not putting their children in car seats. Shit like that. So, because I remember when they made seatbelts mandatory,
In the
and
back
then there was a
seat.
lot of confusion. Yeah,
I remember when you could still ride around in the back of a truck.
right.
People still do that,
When they
of course, but
made
it was okay. It was like culturally acceptable to ride around in the back of a truck.
right, but even then it was like if you had a truck, you there was like a point where you didn't have to wear a seatbelt in a truck while you still had to wear them in the back seats of a car.
Yeah.
So it was like, or in the front seat of a car, sorry. But it was like not there was some reason that it was like because it was farm equipment or something that that dumb Hicks, dumb white Hicks came up to justify. Like, I don't want to wear seatbelt. I'll just say this is my farm equipment. So it was some fucking stupid as to why.
Only in the context of being out in the middle of fucking nowhere.
Right, for sure.
I've been thrown around inside of a truck when I'm strapped to the seat, and you end up like weighing in the fucking window with your head, or getting it. I would almost rather be tossed out of a vehicle if I'm like the thing's about to roll over. That doesn't happen very often. I don't personally.
I mean,
go to
that's
places, but I know that shit happens.
that's how someone we know lost their arm,
Yeah.
is getting tossed out. It's like, yeah, you could sometimes get tossed out and get lucky, or you could get tossed out and lose an arm.
Yeah. There was also
Because
like a bunch of kids that got like ground down into a tree because they were in a convertible Camaro. They were probably driving too fast though.
Mhm. Of course they were. Yeah. You don't die.
You can't get a Camaro like horizontal, or wait, no. You can't get it perpendicular to the ground and like grinding up against a tree unless you're going too fast. You have to be going too fast.
Yeah. And so it's like when it starts raining and people don't change their behavior as if the fucking rain isn't going to affect their grip of their tires. And so it's like
People go outside when it's raining acting like their shoes still have the same mechanical adhesion
exactly, this
properties.
is it's the same people. It's the same exact people. And so this is also where I'm like, on the one hand, Americans, they have way too much access to things that people not only need to have more education and training before they get access to, but probably not necessarily should have access to those things anyway. It's like we never should have had an automobile based infrastructure. Like that was not something that ever should have existed. It always should have been public transit and like specialists driving vehicles that, whether it's a taxi or a fucking bus, like other people use them, and not just because individuals are like, I need to drive myself somewhere. Like, no, that's fucking stupid. That's fucking stupid. Like, we have a lot of like intersections are fucking stupid. They should all be roundabouts. There should never be a T intersection because people run red lights. And it's like over and over and over, I see people dying because some fucking idiot decides they want to run a red light, and they break a traffic rule while the other person's following a traffic rule. Then people die. And it's like, no, that's because of fucking intersections going at a 90-degree angle. That's dumb. Anytime two roads cross at a 90-degree angle, that's fucking stupid. It's just dumb. There's absolutely no reason that should exist. And like the notion that it's just the way, like, because I remember when the metric system and roundabouts were like up for cultural debate, and Americans were just like, nah, no metric system. I want miles per hour for no fucking reason except for the fact that Europeans, it was the European version. So it's like,
Man, I have a theory about why there's so much contention about European vehicles and the it's because they're on the metric system. So when they talk about going 200, they're talking about going 200 kilometers an hour, and that's like 124 miles an hour approximately. Like that's fast. It's fucking fast, but like if the American driver is unable to calculate or convert kilometers to miles or vice versa, they're gonna be like, well, shit, I need to go 200 too. Ah, fuck, give me a supercharger and some nitrous.
well, again, it's like if your speedometer is in kilometers per hour, then you feel like you're going faster.
Yeah.
So it's like that's also why it should have been in kilometers in the first place. Like it's way it's way more mentally
Gratifying.
gratifying to go 100 kilometers per hour than 60 miles per hour. Like it just is.
The funny thing is, like the 62, 63 mile an hour mark, the 100 kilometer per hour mark, is where like literally every vehicle I've ever had achieves the best fuel economy. It'd be so nice just to be cruising at 100, getting like perfect fuel economy, just chilling. Everyone's happy because they're all going 100. Everyone's in triple digits. Nobody needs that. No one really needs to go that fast. I'm going 120. Oranges.
Oh, and this is where hybrids get better fuel economy based on your driving, not on any specific mile an hour. So it's like if you can get up to 70 or 80 and coast, then it's going to get positive fuel instead of negative. And it's like if it depends on your metric if you're trying to be faster or go farther. And it's like you can go farther by driving like 55.
So I have actually
Like,
found that if I drive faster, I have to maintain a level of like, you know, borderline vigilance, borderline hyper vigilance the whole time. If I'm like going like 70 plus 70 to 80 miles an hour, I'm like have to be on it the whole time, and that's like
I mean, but
that's like
technically you should anyway. That's the issue.
That's like
That's
draining.
that's the issue. You're supposed to be that way the whole time. Is why people get in accidents. Is also like there's the false perception that obviously things can go wrong worse at a faster speed, but they don't go wrong any faster. And so that's where it's like the notion that the issue is you're on the edge of the grip with the vehicle, and you're more when you're on the edge of your grip, you're more aware of losing grip, whereas like you can lose control at any given moment based on like whether it's like a tire
time you have to respond.
But no, it's like
the road conditions are in terms of
no, that's like that's only true if you're basing it on perfect driving conditions, which is this is what I'm saying. Like,
no, it's completely the notion. True. It's completely true. If you're moving faster, you have less time to do everything. Full stop.
But your perception is different. So it's
your perception might be different, but the vehicle is still moving at the same rate. You're still moving faster. You have less distance you have more distance, or you have less time and to slow down.
Right, absolutely. But this is where
your tires begin to overheat and your mechanical adhesion properties start breaking
this is
down
where
faster.
That's absolutely true. But this is where that being on the edge and being aware of it is the difference in reaction time. So it's like physically you have less reaction time, but that does not translate into somebody being slower actually having the same reaction rate, which is also where you have people getting into dumb accidents at very low speeds. So it's like that's absolutely true as far as the distance and the timing, but this is also where perception plays such a huge role as to why one should be on edge when they're driving at slow speed, but they're not, and by proxy then the reaction times suck. And so that even though they have more space, it doesn't always translate into actually having more reaction time, which is also where it's like that false perception of being safer at a slow speed by 20 miles per hour potentially, it's like a false perception. So it's like, yeah, someone's much safer at 20 miles per hour than they are at 40. They're much safer at 30 than they are at 50, but they're not the same level of safe between 50 and 70. And so it's like when you're talking about between 50 and 90, it's obviously a much more drastic difference, but the difference between 50 and 70 is not as much of a drastic difference between 30 and 50. So this is why when we're talking about highway speeds, somebody going slower is not at a more advantage, like it the distances at those speeds are not as much of a significant difference. So it's like if it's 0.5 seconds and we're talking about that's the difference between the space of an accident between somebody going 50 and 75, then the reaction time is already the quickest somebody's going to be able to react is like 0.15, and that's what we're talking about, the most elite reaction time. Yeah, but generally it's going to be 0.5.
I'm not even talking about the most elite anything. I'm talking about the average.
I know what I'm saying. The average person is not going, their reaction time is not going to be outside of the difference in speed at 50 and 70 is my point. So that's what I'm saying. 50 and 70, you're at that point where your reaction time, it's not actually that far between the two. So it's not really making that much of a difference. So this is why it's like, it's a false sense of security at 50. No, it doesn't. Yeah, it absolutely does not. Yeah, it does. No, it does not.
At 40 miles
it does
an hour,
not.
The driver is a
I'm talking about 50 to 70. I literally said that.
Miles an hour,
that's what I said.
9%. At 55 miles an hour, that's a 78% risk of severe injury. Speeding triples the likelihood of a crash because speed.
That's not what we're talking about.
these are
We're
all
talking about the
factors.
difference in. No, we're talking about the difference in reaction time.
Yeah, no,
Literally.
these things all.
That's what I'm
factor in.
talking about.
Yeah, and so if you're
No.
going, if you're going 40 miles an hour, you need 120 feet on average to stop. At 60, that increases to 240 feet. When you start moving faster than that, that increases exponentially.
Absolutely, absolutely. I'm talking about highway speeds, though.
Yeah,
We're 40 miles an hour is not a highway speed. It's only a highway speed in Indiana.
45 is the.
That's what I'm only in Indiana, bro. That's what I'm trying to tell you. That's only a highway speed in Indiana.
No. 45 is the legal minimum speed limit on interstates nationally. That's the federal minimum speed limit. 45. You don't
But no, Indiana is like the only state where that's the listed speed on the highway, which again, you can get pulled over for going to, if the listed speed is 75 and you're going 45 and everybody else is going 85, you can get pulled over for going too slow if you're going 45 because you're a danger. So the national minimum may be 45, but traffic actually dictates if the listed speed limit is 75 and you're going 45, you're going to get pulled over. So that's like you're talking about multiple different things. So I was never saying that going 30 miles an hour gives someone a much less advantage than somebody going 70 miles an hour. They have much better. It's the difference between 50 and 70 on the highway speeds as to where it starts to get less. The actual distance starts to become less of an influence because the time for reaction is roughly the same at those speeds. And that's where I'm saying it's like, that's not me. That's where the issue is. That's why they don't want you to go above 70, because it starts to increase dramatically past 70 is the point. So this is what I'm saying. It's like there is a point between 50 and 70, which is why they want to keep people between 50 and 70, which is roughly no different. The issue is once you go beyond those, it's where things start to get extremely dramatic. So if someone's going 45 and someone's going 75, it's going to be extremely dramatic. Whereas if somebody's going 55 and somebody's going 65 in the same direction, it's not as dramatic as someone going 45 and someone going 75 in the same direction. So that's where this is where I was talking about the differential becomes the issue. Speed differential is usually the issue as to where the force comes from, but that's not always true with crumple zones now. So this is why two people, if someone's going 50 miles an hour in one direction, someone's going 50 miles an hour in the other direction, it's not the equivalent of someone hitting a wall at 100 miles an hour because crumple zones exist and diffusion exists. So even if crumple zones didn't exist, it would be closer to 75, but it's like the way that speed differential works, it's like that force transfer becomes higher the higher the speed differential. So it's not about traveling at low speeds, it's about having a lower speed differential. Whereas if the speed differential is low, but both of the cars are still traveling at 70 miles an hour, then we're talking about a whole different equation. So that's what I'm saying. It's like, it's not.
The person who's going 70 miles an hour and hits an immovable tree is still going 70 miles an hour. The person that's
absolutely
going 50 miles an hour is
absolutely
going 50 miles an hour. That
absolutely
20 mile an hour differential might send the 50 mile an hour car careening into the ditch, but that 70 mile an hour vehicle is going to flip over.
Absolutely. No, that's not a question. That's not a situation that can happen on a highway.
There's no amount of response. That's exactly what fucking happened to me when I got rear-ended on the highway.
You went into a tree on a highway?
No. I got rear-ended.
That's you said to go in a tree. The immovable object is a tree. That's what I'm saying. Like there are immovable objects on the highway. Obviously,
I got rear-ended by an SUV. They flipped their vehicle. They climbed over the back of my car and flipped, like rolled over, and then proceeded to roll over onto the side of the road into the guardrail thing. They stopped, and I stopped because I still had brakes on the front of the vehicle. They flew over my car. I know, the whole perception, speeding up, time slow down thing. Yeah, sure. I looked to my left and watched this dude like having this oh shit moment, and I saw him through the sunroof of his car. That was actually one of the reasons I've I've opted against sunroofs ever since because I watched that dude. Then he rolled over and there was just sparks everywhere. But I don't think if even if he hadn't been drunk, I don't think that he would have had the foresight or the sense to slow down. When there's traffic around. That's the thing. Like it doesn't. I don't think it matters. Like how much someone's paying attention because there's always some other asshole on the road. There's always some deer crossing the road. There's always something that's like I I've come across like spare tires just in the middle of the road. You can't plan for that. Nobody's clairvoyant. Like some of these things you hit a fucking raccoon hard enough and there goes your radiator. Done. You don't know what's in that bag that's on the road. That could have a fucking brick in it. Bye wheel.
Well, and I've had a literal turkey fly across the highway,
Oh god.
and we almost hit it. Like we almost fucking. It was like those things take out planes. Like
hitting birds sucks because they send feathers everywhere. I hit a bird one time and it freaked me out. Like I couldn't drive for another 20 minutes. I had to stop because you're not supposed to hit birds. I mean, you're not supposed to, but they're not supposed to get hit by cars.
right. I mean, and that's where I remember in third grade, I was watching Back to the Future 3 on a black and white remote. It was a TV that you could watch remote. So I was watching it in the back seat of our Ford Aerostar. It was broadcasting on Channel 13. I hear my mom go, "Larry!" And next thing I know, I'm like
splat
in a fucking no. It's like I'm in a washing machine, tumbling. I see the TV like bouncing around, and I'm like, at a certain point, then I come to a rest like between basically the front driver's seat and like the floor. And I'm like, okay, what the fuck just happened? And it was like, we hit a deer and it basically tossed everything in the car, including the children who weren't wearing seatbelts, because it was like at a time when that wasn't mandatory. So it's like being in the car when that happened, that's where I'm like, oh, we could have easily gone through the windshield and like landed on the fucking pavement. Like we just got lucky and went into the back seats of the car,
yeah,
or into the back of the seats. And so it's like, I know, like, I've been in terrible accidents, and the only thing that really basically like saved me in that situation was luck. And so it's like knowing that it's one of those things where on the one hand, like, yeah, people should drive safely. Obviously, it's one of those that's a given. But the issue is people like the longer they drive, the more lax they get. They'll decide there's a certain speed that's safe, and then they like will not drive the same way until they hit that speed. That's the problem to me. It's not that people shouldn't drive like at any or below or above any given speed. It's that the way that they drive above or below the decided speed, rather, that's my problem. Is like people like I still to this day, if my mom answers the phone while she's texting or answers the phone while she's driving, I'm like, hang up the phone now. Like, don't talk to me and drive. Like, it's one of those things. Like, if somebody calls me while I'm driving, I don't answer the fucking phone. I'm paying attention to the road. It's not that big of a deal. It's like, if somebody texts me while I'm driving, I don't text them back until I get to the destination. There's like little things where it's like super easy to do, but people will like not do those things at a certain speeds, and then they'll do them above that. They'll make exceptions above this decided speed, and then it's like, it's not just that. It's like driving tired, driving fucking um with your low blood sugar, like all these things people do, and they put themselves behind the wheel in situations where, like, now that I've driven sim racing enough, I'm like, oh, I shouldn't even bother when my blood sugar is low. I'm not diabetic,
No, that's like
but
dangerous
like
as fuck.
it
That's
is.
how people
It
pass
is.
out when they're driving.
Not even pass out.
you
You're
get
just not
warm.
sharp. You're
Oh
not
yeah.
sharp. Like that brain fog is real. If you have brain fog, you should not be getting behind the wheel of a car. Period. But then people like get so used to that as part of their daily lives, they just walk around through the fog, and let alone get behind the wheel in the fog. Like that shit is so
I
dangerous.
was behind a truck last night, and they were going real like I drive the speed limit in town because I don't want to get fucked with by the fuzz. They're just waiting, but and that's just me being paranoid, I guess. But no, I was behind this truck, and they were just like weaving all over the place, but they weren't like avoiding manhole covers or cracks in the road or bumps or anything weird like that. They were just kind of not paying attention. But at one point, I thought to myself, they're probably just having like a diabetic reaction. And the reason is I saw a video of a person just driving all crazy, and when they finally came to a stop, they were delirious. They had no idea where they were, and the 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 in the body cam footage, the police officer was like, very gently coaxed it out of them. Are you having an incident? Like do you need an orange? Do you need a banana? I think I've got a banana. And it was wild. Like that wasn't on my radar for reasons people might be driving like they're drunk. But it makes a lot of sense. I know when I do any kind of long drive, I'm like, managing my like caffeine, sugar, protein, and sodium intake like the whole time. And that's the way to keep your brain functioning when you're sitting there in the same position, you know, warm and comfortable, or cool enough, not overheating, whatever it is, whatever the conditions are that people fall asleep. Because I've seen people just like, you know, careen into the rumble strip and stay there, not just like, oh shit, and not like they're like looking for something and they just kind of drift over, but like they really just like swing over. I'm a big fan of rumble strips too. But you're dead on about blood sugar. Like there's some things that are just, I don't know why they even exist at truck stops or at gas stations, like the stuff that's basically just a big sugar spike, because all those things do is knock you out like in half an hour. And of course, the other thing that I always wonder is like why they exist, or like the gas station sandwiches that look like they look like the sandwiches that were in vending machines in college, when like it's very common now that gas stations have like a Subway built into them now, or a chicken restaurant, or a pizza parlor. Like on the East Coast, there's this whole thing about Wawas, which are really just like a advanced 7-Eleven with a deli. Not even a deli, it's kind of a deli, but they make pizzas and sandwiches and have a chicken broaster. Oh, it looks like they have Wawas in Indianapolis now and Westfield. Wait, there's a Canadian. chain.
Oh, Wawa's was Canadian.
No, they're from Philadelphia. It's like I don't know.
I
They're
thought
no
they were all, like Tim Hortons.
Tim Hortons. That's the one I was thinking of. I guess that's not Canadian, is it?
It is. I
It
thought.
is.
I mean, it might be. I assumed it was. We got one here, but I assumed it's because we're on the border.
Oh, it's not. It was founded in Canada. Okay, so it is Canadian, kind of.
What
Deeply.
is Wawa?
No, the Tim Hortons.
Oh
Wawa,
yeah, okay.
Wawa's from Philadelphia.
Philadelphia.
Yeah, but it's just like Tim Hortons. Like that's a thing. Like people like rave about Tim Hortons coffee and the other services that are available at those places. And I think it's cool. I think that stuff's great. Actually, I love that there are like regional things that have risen to that level of, oh my god, you got to try it. Although it happened to me one time with this New England soda. Moxie, and some people really like it, but I couldn't get into it. It kind of tasted like I probably had an old case of it, but it tasted like if you took root beer and poured it on a table, and then wiped it up with a rag, and then wrung the rag out into a glass of ice. That's what it tasted like to me, and so I didn't like it. But some people love it, and they like, I probably would start a fight if I said that in public, but in the right place. But there are things like that exist, and I think that stuff's really cool. That's actually one of my favorite things about like a road trip. Like I didn't know about the Buc-ee's until I went on a road trip, and now Buc-ee's is expanding all over the place. And there used to be another kind of variation on the theme called Come and Go, and that got bought out by another truck stop plaza thing that doesn't really exist this far east. It's mostly west, and that stuff's really cool though, because somehow those things have become like destinations on the interstates. Like, I don't know if you've been to a Buc-ee's, but those things are like super Walmarts of convenience stores.
Oh yeah,
That are kind of scary actually.
yeah.
When they have like as many fill up stations as like, it's like a football field or a soccer field worth of gas pumps, and that are visible from the interstate, and there's probably some on the other side of it too.
Well, and they have so much random shit inside. It's like you never think to find the items that you find inside. You're like, these two things would not be in the same place. Like,
Dude, you can buy an outboard motor at a Buc-ee's. You can buy
hey,
you can buy all sorts of really weird shit at Buc-ee's. I saw it was for a truck, like a semi truck, but it was this big GPS like a radar dome looking GPS module. I think it also had like a cellular antenna in it, but it was gigantic, and I'm thinking like, who the fuck's putting that on top of their fucking vehicles? Who wants to have a car or a truck that looks like it's the Google Maps vehicle? Other than like Ghostbusters cosplayers.
what happened? I mean, do those still exist?
Yeah, I think it was either Hasbro or Mattel, or one of them has released a like an adult size proton pack.
Oh man.
Yeah, yeah, you get them. They're like $250, but they're adult sized. And then you can get really fancy ones for more like $700, $800.
I don't know if you've seen the new Ghostbusters, but I couldn't watch it for more than 5 minutes. It was like way too weird. Like in terms of when something's been Disneyfied.
Wait, the Frozen Empire? Is that what it's
Right.
called? Or okay, yeah,
I
Frozen
mean,
Empire.
I think that's
That's the most
yeah.
recent one.
But even the one, I think it was the one before that, like whatever
Okay,
reboot
so
with what Paul Rudd started.
I'm just looking at this like thumbnail that keeps replaying, and it looks like an attempt to get the band back together with a few fresh faces and a recycled story. Also, Bill Murray looks like a ghost already.
I mean, that's what the thumbnail implies, but I don't even it like the 5 minutes I saw did not feel like that at
I
all.
didn't mean my lightning analysis to be endearing.
No. But even then, it's like I think that they'd use that to bait people, and then bait and switched with something that was then like nostalgia maxing, but also so they could nostalgia max with their kids. So it just felt so weird. I couldn't like, it was on in a hotel.
Man, how do we go from a story universe where one of the main characters is basically a con man? He's trying to seduce young college students with shock tests, and characters like the Keymaster and the Gatekeeper who are intentionally and unintentionally exuding sexuality to a family movie like this. I'm not.
I mean,
I'm not sure. Was Ghostbusters actually a family movie, or was it for
adults? No. But when's the last time you've seen Ghostbusters 2?
That was the really weird one where they made the Statue of Liberty come to life, right?
You remember that part? That's the part that everybody remembers.
There was
right?
also like a baby kidnapping because they're going to sacrifice.
Everybody remembers the second and third act. But what happens is the first act basically is all about how people stopped paying attention to the Ghostbusters. And so there was like a period where Ghostbusters was like not popular. And it was like after they made the real Ghostbusters cartoon and like
after the one with the ape, right? Not the one with the ape.
The one with the ape.
Oh, there's a Ghostbusters cartoon where there's this giant ape that fights ghosts.
No, this is way before that. This is like they made one that was like.
No, it's I think it predates. I think it predates like our Ghostbusters. It's like from the 70s and early 80s.
What?
Oh yeah, man! It's a 1986 TV series. Tracy the gorilla
I mean, does it have anything to do with these Ghostbusters?
No, but they fought ghosts, and they that was their thing.
That's what. But I'm talking. This is like a Ghostbusters cartoon based on the Ghostbusters TV show, the real Ghostbusters, that had like Slimer. They made like Slimer, like a good guy protagonist, and they made it was like basically about Janine and Slimer most of the time, and then the Ghostbusters would come in and like do their thing. But between Ghostbusters 1, the real Ghostbusters, and Ghostbusters 2, the popularity fell off hardcore. That's what the first act of Ghostbusters 2 is all about. And so they were basically making a meta commentary about how nobody cares about Ghostbusters anymore. And so they could not carry that plot line through the film. So nobody even remembers it's part of it. But the first part of the movie is all about making fun of how irrelevant the Ghostbusters are to Americans. And so it's like the way that they did a great job of that meta commentary in the first act, but did not have enough material to keep it up, is why people remember the New York or the fucking Statue of Liberty thing. But that's because they had to like come up with some third act that was like, okay, what's the biggest thing we could possibly do? And so the third act, it's like this big spectacle that really makes no sense, and you remember it, but like it's so completely disconnected from the first part of the movie that, again, I think the movie is terrible in its execution, but in like knowing what happened culturally, like the first part, it's like a mind fuck, because it's like, holy shit, they were so on it, but then it just fucking falls apart, which is also where you're like, oh, I see why it didn't stay popular because the writing was fucking terrible. So it's like you can only have so many, oh, I'm fucking jaded, hitting on women, like obviously not a good looking man, but also a womanizer before it gets old jokes. And that's the problem is like Peter Venkman he's like, he embodies all of the things now that like the manosphere touts, but he was like the prototype for them in a way where it was meant to be funny. But now culturally, it's like, oh, this is like the opposite of what people actually want in a dude.
It was like the proto Fight Club effect.
Right, for sure.
Okay.
In many ways.
I can buy this. This actually this makes a lot of sense because he's like that character is just horrible. But I don't think that we couldn't have had it any other way. Like Bill Murray delivered that to us because that's what the character called for. I don't think anyone could have given us that version of Peter Venkman either, though.
It wouldn't have worked if he was too handsome.
Yeah, and it wouldn't have worked if he couldn't pull off the deadpan. And he did a really good job of being a despicable person.
All right.
Now that we're like decades into this stuff of watching people be horrible on screen, and also finding out through their behavior, their public behavior, that they actually are horrible people. I wonder how far back this actually goes. Like, do you think it's always been the case? Like, the people who are the best at not just being like, I'm not talking about somebody who's really good at being the bad guy, but like the person who's not the villain, but you just can't stand them on screen.
I know exactly the turning point in time. It's fucking Jeremy Piven. He is the marked point where the person on screen who's not necessarily cast as the bad guy is also the same person off screen by proxy, making everyone fucking hate his guts, but he does it so well that he keeps getting jobs until everyone finally's like, is this guy a douchebag? Yeah, he's a douchebag. Let's stop fucking hiring him. And then he fucking fades into the background as to where he should have always been.
Oh, wait, you mean like the villain of the canceled Star Trek series?
Wait, which one?
He's the bad guy in Starfleet Academy, the recently canceled after like 4 episodes.
Whoa, no, I had no idea. I had no idea. They did not promote him.
It's so terrible. Everything about it is such a
whoa.
It's like I have yet to watch it. I've only watched breakdowns of it because I can't bring myself to do it. I just can't. And then find out that he's the big bad, and now I really don't need to see it. Like,
well, they fucked up by hiring him.
The only good thing they did was give us the holographic doctor, the EMH, or yeah. EMH.
Well, that was
Richard Picardo. Like he was the best part of the show as far as I can tell. And I haven't seen any of his performances, and I'm not going to. And I'm just gonna say it. He was the best part of Starfleet Academy. And
did you watch it?
Nope. I'm gonna say it. He was the absolute best part of Starfleet Academy. I will. People can fight me about that if all they want, but I know enough that I can just stop it.
So
real fucking quick.
I will agree with that, and I will say, as a lifelong lover of Star Trek, I gave Starfleet Academy like 5 minutes because I was like, it can't be that bad. Like, they must just be hating on it because they're anti-woke or whatever. And like, good God, it was some of the worst television I've watched since the Eternals. Oh. Or not the Eternals, the fucking what's it called? The Inhumans. Marvel's Inhumans is the only
Oh,
other worst television I've ever seen from Starfleet Academy.
yeah, yeah, man. I'd actually forgotten how terrible Unhumans was, and I now remember. No, no, it's sad when you've got there's a flagship like intellectual property out there that's got a fan base that goes back decades and decades and decades. 60 years of Star Trek basically, and so there's this entire universe, and then they come up with this show that makes you think they've never watched any of this stuff.